Recording in progress.
Good morning, dear, beautiful Dharma friends. I just made a realization. The days are getting shorter. The sun is coming up later. Huh. I'm Robert Beatty, or at least that's how I make sense of myself. How I have someone to cling to. I am speaking to you from Portland, Oregon, on the border between Portland and Beaverton. This is a broadcast of the Portland Insight Meditation Community. And these morning broadcasts have been happening since the beginning of COVID here in the U.S. And will continue if it ever ends. I have a lovely little story to share with you this morning. I was just scanning through my poetry and my collection of readings here on my iPad, and this one popped out. It's called I Wish You Enough. At the airport, I overheard a father and daughter in their last moments together. They had announced her plane's departure, and standing near the door, she said, "Daddy, our life together has been more than enough. Your love is all I ever needed. I wish you enough too, Daddy." They kissed goodbye and she left. He walked toward the window where I was seated. Standing there, I could see he wanted and needed to cry. I tried not to intrude on his privacy, but he welcomed me in by asking, "Did you ever say goodbye to someone knowing it would be forever?" "Yes, I have," I replied. Saying that brought back memories I had of expressing my love and appreciation for all my dad had done for me. Recognizing that his days were limited, I took the time to tell him face to face how much he meant to me, so I knew something of what this man was experiencing. "Forgive me for asking, but why is this a forever goodbye?" I asked. "I am old and she lives much too far away. I have challenges ahead, and the reality is her next trip will be back for my funeral," he said. "When you were saying goodbye, I heard you say, 'I wish you enough.' May I ask what that means?" He began to smile. "That's a wish that has been handed down from other generations. My parents used to say it to everyone." He paused a moment and looked up as if trying to remember it in detail. He smiled even more. "When we said, 'I wish you enough,' we were wanting the other person to have a life filled with enough good things to sustain them." He continued, and then, turning toward me, he shared the following, as if he were reciting it from memory. "I wish you enough sun to keep your attitude bright. I wish you enough rain to appreciate the sun more. I wish you enough happiness to keep your spirit alive. I wish you enough pain so that the smallest joys of life appear much bigger. I wish you enough gain to satisfy your wanting. I wish you enough loss to appreciate all that you possess. I wish you enough hellos to get you through the final goodbye." He then began to sob and walked away. Let's sit. Let's sit in the middle of this moment, whether it's one with a lot of pleasure or a lot of pain, or some of both. This moment is all we're ever going to have right now. It may be filled, will be filled with all kinds of different experiences. Right now, there is this sitting here, this breathing in, this breathing out. For a long time now, 2,600 years, humans have done exactly what we're doing. That's a lot of inspiration. Exactly what we're doing. They've come home to the body, feeling it touching the chair or the cushion. They have thought in and spoken many, many different languages. They've practiced in times of peace and war. They've practiced when they were falling in love and falling out of love. They've practiced when they were young and vibrant and old and dying. They've practiced when life around them was calm, tranquil, safe, and when there was war raging, or when their culture was in disintegration and disarray. And so it is in this noble lineage of Sangha that we sit. Inspired by the Buddha, who was an ordinary person exactly like us. By his wife, Yashodhara, and his mother, his stepmother. His stepmother because his mother died in childbirth. Both of whom became great meditation teachers and awakened beings. And so we sit here in the midst of our lives. And there's breathing in and breathing out. Each breath is an invitation to be present now in the body. Each thought, each wandering mind is likewise an invitation to be present and aware of what's happening in mind. And there's lots of delusion, lots of trance states we fall into. But the direction is clear. In the words made so famous by Ram Dass, we practice be here now as best we can. Perhaps this is one of those times when the mind is very quiet, when it's possible to be here, to be aware of the body, to notice an occasional outbreak of thought. One of those times when the personality is brightly illuminated by mindfulness, when curiosity is strong, when tranquility and equanimity are also strong, and there's a quiet joy at just being. Or maybe this is one of those times when there's lots of restlessness and agitation. They come along when life is revealed in its uncertainty and challenge. When the vicissitudes of gain and loss and pleasure and pain and success and failure, fame and disrepute and health and sickness, when they pull the carpet out from under us. Sometimes then the mind is filled with wanting. I want more ease. I want more pleasure. I want more political stability. I want myself to be this way. I want my friend to be that way. Or maybe it's disliking. I dislike this, I dislike that. This should be different. These are not mistakes or because we're doing something wrong. They're just life. The ripening of karma. Or maybe this is a moment of doubt. Why am I even doing this? So we come home to breathing in and breathing out. In the middle of it all, no matter how sweet or how awful it is. Each breath has its beginning. It rises all the way to fullness, and then it declines. we are cultivating the balance between concentration and mindfulness. To strengthen concentration, using the breath, which is one of many objects we could use, but it's so convenient. To strengthen concentration, we focus just a little more, 2% more, on the intention of staying in a stable fashion with the sensations of breathing. So we can be clear about my intention to be here for the beginning, middle, and ending. In fact, for the entirety of breathing in and out. When the mind is found wandering, it's with kind, loving perseverance. We take up in-breathing and out-breathing. We might even use noting to note rising, rising, falling, falling, to point at, in a way, the sensations of breathing. Or we could count on the in-breath 1 and the out-breath 2 up to 10, and then start over. Not with any violence, not with demand, but with clarity of intention. When breathing out is finished and the body is simply sitting here, we might become aware of the life in the hands for a few moments, or maybe the whole body, or simply to be aware, present. And then there's the birth of the next breath. So concentration is the ability of the mind to stay with a chosen object, to penetrate deeply into it. Its companion, mindfulness, does something different. It remembers to be present. It knows objects. It knows when breathing in begins. It knows when it ends. It illuminates and knows thoughts as thoughts. Sometimes after a long journey with a trance state, some obsession, some worry, some plan, some excitement about something, mindfulness will then blossom, and it shines on everything equally, like the sun. In the midst of the most out of control, wild, frightening, confusing, doubt-creating, wandering mind. There will be moments when mindfulness is 100% operative. Oh, this is the mind full of fear. This is the mind full of desire. And so we rest in the beauty of our being and its capacity to develop and grow and mature into mindfulness and concentration both. As we abide in the present moment, I have a recurring memory. Happens a lot. My former partner in life, Nancy Turner, without whom PIMC would not exist. She did the real. Ruth gave me the first $10,000, and I went, I don't know what to do. And she went out and found advertisements for churches that were for sale. And then she did real estate stuff, flipping apartments and houses. And anyway, I bow in gratitude to her input to make PIMC happen. And we got this little puppy. Her name was Collie. And she was tiny. She was a miniature husky, the first of a line of miniature huskies. I now have Budo, who is a descendant of Collie, he's now 17. But anyway, the image that's in mind is Nancy in her brightness, with Collie in the bed in the morning, saying, "We get another day, Collie. We get another day." And I always think that at this moment. It's like, we get another day. How astounding. Another day. I have a fair drive ahead of me today. I'm driving to the Dalles, which is, I think, 100 miles, up the gorge, to get our dog's second rattlesnake vaccine. Because we're going for 10 days to rattlesnake country, and I'd really like my dog not to die in front of me with rattlesnake bite. So that'll be an interesting thing, a nice drive up the gorge. Nobody in Portland offers the vaccine because we don't have rattlesnakes here, which I'm glad of. So I have 3 little announcements that I put in the chat. The first is the usual. There's been others. There's a golden opportunity, a marvelous opportunity to practice generosity toward PIMC. And you just simply click the link and offer what you can. Give until your heart feels full is what the one guidance is. And the second I just thought to put up there because I saw it is this guy called Rob Orman did a really nice interview, lovely interview. And then he edited it nicely. And so it's there. And then there's also this diversity, equity, and inclusion, our belonging questionnaire. And you may have received it through some other vehicle. But it's an attempt. We're at the beginning of our conscious process of making PIMC more welcoming to people of all diverse identities and backgrounds. And so you can help us. We really need you by filling this out. And it takes a while. It takes about 10 minutes. And if you're thoughtful, it can take even longer than that. But it asks very, very useful questions. So I invite you to dive into that and see how you can help. And there will be much more coming around the shorthand DEI. I sometimes, when I say the shortcut, I say the DIE process, but I think that's not the right. It's not the. Even though I talk about that all the time, it's the welcoming. How can we be really welcoming to people of various ethnicities, colors, shapes, sexual preferences, capacities of sight and sound and hearing and ableness and not. It's not a new thing for us to be concerned about this, but we're being much more thoughtful and thorough and looking at what other Dharma centers have done, and we're having people come to help us. But we need you. So that's my invitation to fill out the questionnaire. So, am I forgetting anything crucial, Mr. Dalton?
Well, it's coming up to the 1st of August, and the 7th of August, Candle's going to be doing the first Saturday retreat.
Yes.
That's the next milestone on the road.
Great. Thank you. So if I were to throw a thought in a question, one of my favorite questions is, how is anicca, impermanence, shining at you? What are you learning about impermanence? My teacher, Sujata, that I did quite a long journey with, 6 years. Total involvement, total engagement. Lived there. And he would always begin my daily meditation interview on retreats with, and what have you learned today about impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and not self? He would say, what have you learned about anicca, dukkha, anatta? And you don't have to be limited to that question. What else is happening? What would you like to share? Have a good class, Jim. Oh, he's gone already. Poof. Just like life.
Hi, Robert. It's Catherine.
Hello, Catherine.
Hello. Yeah, I've learned anicca and dukkha is a bummer. My mom passed away in February, and because of COVID, we weren't able to have a funeral or anything. So we're going to have a memorial for her on the 8th of August. And my brother and sister and I have been putting it together. And I can't believe how sad it's making me. I thought I had worked through the bulk of the sadness, but now it just feels like, oh, it's just starting. And yeah, so I don't like impermanence today. Yeah.
Ceremonies are intended and designed to bring out the grief.
Yeah.
It's their very purpose.
Yeah. I'm beginning to become very resistant to this ceremony. We need to do this, and it felt like the right thing. And yeah, this is good. And now it's like, whoa, I just want to put the brakes on. I don't want to do this.
Mm-hmm. Well, it looks like it's breaking your heart.
Yeah.
Open.
it just keeps breaking.
Yeah. And the grief of this loss of your mom will provoke the opening to the grief of your lifetime.
Right.
And so anything unfinished, all the way back to birth, really, and to the degree you can allow yourself to break open, there'll be more and more love and compassion available to you from inside. But it's really hard. Do you have good support in your family?
Yeah, pretty good. But it's interesting because, doubt is one of the hindrances. I never have experienced doubt that this work works. But what I'm realizing, my flavor of doubt is doubt that I can do it.
You mean, are you can you tolerate this rafting trip into the canyons of grief and despair? Is that what you mean?
No, a little bit like, is there just enough time in this world? It's like a mountain to climb. It just feels like, the more I learn about this road, the bigger it gets. It's like, oh wow, oh this, okay, and then I just go back to my just centered and walking my path. But some days it feels like the ripening of karma, and it just feels like, oh wow, this is huge, this is really, really big, and the dukkha and it's all really, really huge. And I keep taking one step at a time, but it's like there's a whole mountain range to cross, and I'm not running.
And what?
Well, I'm kind of crawling. I feel like I'm kind of crawling. I'm certainly not running. I'm not running through this. Like, wow, this isn't all just coming real fast and simple. It is one little step at a time.
It's a really heavy pack you're carrying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I've learned today. I don't like it.
That's what an unusual response. As for me, whenever the dukkha really gets big, I always just take a deep breath and realize how competent I am, and then I turn toward it and walk in and have no doubt. Not.
That's great.
This is why we have friends, Dharma friends, really. I have this image for myself that you may have heard me say, that as I have turned toward when these monumental griefs and losses come along, I need a hand to hold sometimes. I literally, physically need a hand to hold. I've sat with a couple of incredible therapists, and Ruth Dennison, and it's been so unbearable. Now there's the metaphorical hand, which is just being with someone who says, "Yup," and I say this to you: you will survive this. You will do this, and you will become so much bigger of heart and capacity of being with, that you'll hardly recognize yourself, though it's been you all along. And you may need, one way or another, a hand to hold as you go through this.
Yeah. sometimes when there's a hand offered and I hold it, it actually kind of makes me even more grief stricken. I'm sort of
Absolutely.
blown away. Yeah.
Yeah.
Generosity of love kind of
Mm-hmm.
it just levels me.
Yep. Hang on, I'm looking for something here on my phone. This little dog, my beloved Budo, who is he's so old, he's deaf, and he's out there on that towel under the tree waiting for me now. He gets up with me, he follows me, he goes in, he sits outside the bathroom, he's always with me. And he's been to thousands of meetings with individuals. I think thousands would be true. And on about 10 occasions, now I feel sad. On about 10 occasions when someone was in the pits of despair, sobbing, quote, uncontrollably, awake, present, diving deeper and deeper into their grief, tears streaming down their faces, he's gotten up off his little bed, come over, put one paw up, and asked to get up, which he does not do, to get up, and he licked one tear and then went back to his bed.
Oh my goodness.
And the person then plummeted into another sub-basement of despair, and because somehow or another that little dog got it. And he didn't hang around. It wasn't smarmy, or he didn't need anything. It was like one tear and back to his bed.
Wow.
And we need that sometimes. We need someone to hold us. I did a grief ritual once at a men's conference with Malidomas Somé was the guy's name, and Robert Bly, and a group. It was 120 men in the woods in Mendocino. And it was a 3-day ritual. We took 2 days to prepare, and then this ritual, and it was wild. And there was a place trying to get into the sanctum. There was this center, the holy place of grief and despair, and there was a ring of men who would not let us get in there. They would support us, and so to be held in the anguish of grief by the community is to allow ourselves to heal. And our culture is quadriplegic at best around grief.
Not good at all.
I mean, your mother died when? Well, you should be over it by now.
Right.
Get back to work. That's just, we're merciless around grief.
Yeah.
Actually, I recently watched the TV series The Crown. Mm-hmm. And of course, that family is really screwed up around so many things.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really among the craziest things. They actually believed, and maybe still do, that there's something in their blood that makes them worthy of being that. It's the strangest belief system. But here's these boys. They've lost their mother, and they walk publicly alone at the funeral. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
Because they had to prove somehow I can hold it together. It's so much more braver to demonstrate, to be I can fall apart. I can recognize the profundity of this loss. I mean, this is being a little bold here. Don't want to make things much worse, but your mom is gone. And
Yeah.
I mean, what does that mean in terms of all the other people you love, and and your own body and all your achievements. It's so huge if we let ourselves open to it. And is the path to freedom.
It's a long, long path. I feel like I've taken like the equivalent of one step on it at this point, you know. I guess that's all there is, right? Just keep walking.
This step right now, yep. One, yeah, to coin a very important phrase, one step at a time.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of true, right? That's what we have.
That's all we have.
Yeah.
This moment.
Right.
Oops. Thank you for sharing this beautiful opening that you're what you've just done in opening to this in community is to give everyone here more opportunity to feel their own grief when it comes time.
Mm-hmm.
Robert just wrote, a shared grief is a shared love. Many of us will be thinking of you, Catherine.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
My parents both drank a lot till the end. My mother had a stroke and then couldn't drink for the last 6 or 7 years. Couldn't get at it. But one of the results of that, in a way, was they couldn't bear the pain of grief. And so they stopped going to their friends' funerals. As their friends dropped one at a time, they simply could not tolerate it. And they became tighter and tighter, of course, more and more isolated, and there was nothing. I could see it. I'd hear a kind of a matter-of-fact comment, well, you know, Floyd McGregor died, very close family friend. And no, we're not, it's too far to go to the funeral. It's a couple of 100 miles. So you're being very brave and sensible, and sometimes family members will try to shut us down in grief too. Very effectively. In fact, my father died, heart attack, not unexpected really, and it was in Vancouver, BC, and I went up there. I was there about a week, and I stayed through his cremation. It was in the old days when they had the old cremation place in North Vancouver, and I got to go, and it was just the cremation guy and me.
Wow.
And so I got to look in the box and push the box in and close the door and push the buttons, and I got to really be engaged. And then I peeked in a little bit, and then that was more than I could deal with. But then the next day, anyway, long story short, I came back, and the next weekend I went out to dinner with my then wife and another couple of really good friends at a fancy restaurant, I remember. And I was full of my father's death and funeral. And I tried to talk about it, and this fellow's name was Jack. And suddenly, and we'd had a couple of glasses of wine, no doubt. But I tried to talk about it, and then all of a sudden we were talking about something else. And I couldn't, it's like, what happened there? And I tried a second time, and then we were talking about something else. And the third time I did it really consciously. It's like all right, here I am. And I brought up something about the cremation. And I watched as he took what I said and went, yeah. And I realized, we're not going to talk about what I want to talk about. And then that relationship really cooled off, and I didn't have it together to talk about it with him. And several years later, his mother died, and then we had a conversation, and I was able to tell him what had happened. And he said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't even know I was doing that." But he was so terrified of his own mother's death, of death in general, that he had to change the subject. So one needs to choose carefully who we share with. Because some people will say, wow, tell me more. I'm in this with you. And others will say, did you see what happened at the Olympics last night? Who cares about the Olympics? It's what's happening in Catherine's heart that's really of relevance.
Yeah.
Hi, it's Joy. Hi.
Hello, Joy.
I'm also, interestingly, attending my mother's memorial on August 4th. And my mother died in December. And I'm really excited about it. I'm a little nervous because I have to go to Winnipeg, and for some reason I've planned the most inconvenient trip possible. Taking a ferry, then a bus, then a SkyTrain. So anyway, I'm really happy that my family went through a period of conflict and disagreement and dislike of each other, and now everything is it's good. Like, we worked it all through, and I think I understood that my brother, my sister-in-law, and other people, they just have their own automatic way of dealing with difficult situations, and there's a way of, like, if you're up against someone who's very angry, just kind of staying calm and accepting the anger that may have come from his extreme grief. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to the 50 people will be in a park, and the forecast is good. So thank you.
Happy journey, Joy.
We're leaving Sunday. Oh. I hope that ferry sails and the planes fly.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Well, my dear friends, I need to go. I think the gutter people have arrived at the front of the house. The final stage of our new roof. So let us go out on... What should we go out on? How about an Om and a gong? You want to unmute so our beautiful cacophonous Om can emerge? Have a lovely day. See you tomorrow. results of our practice. May we all grieve fully when it's the time to grieve. Sadhu, my dear friends.
Adu.
Hello.
Adu.
Sadhu and
Well,
salut.
everyone.
That's kind of cool, actually. Salut. Bye-bye. Ready for the jump to hyperspace. Here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go.